introduce now our speaker, Debra. Would you like to join me?
Sure.
And Luca, the Innovation Network Manager. Debra, would you like to tell us a bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a delight to be here today. Thank you so much to the team here at OGTC for inviting me. My name is Debbie Carr. I'm the Innovation Partner for Scotland for the Defence and Security Accelerator, and I'm going to tell you all about that during the talk.
Want to say something about what the talk will be about?
Well, the talk is really based around what the Defence and Security Accelerator is, what funding we can offer, and how we're very, very interested in being disruptive within defence and security and finding out what you can offer us.
Brilliant. Luca, how is this relevant to the OGTC and to the oil industry?
Well, this is about technology transfer, transferring technology from one sector to another one. And we do that a lot here in the Oil and Gas Technology Center. Often we look at technology we can take from other sectors. This is probably more about what technology are we develop in the oil and gas industry that can be beneficial for the defense sector. But it goes really both ways. We have a strong supply chain in the oil and gas industry that have developed many, many solutions to the various challenges of the industry. Do any of those solutions apply to the defense? Do they have a problem that we might already have a solution that needs some help to be transferred? So this is about what help you can get from the supply chain in doing so. And by that, interesting for us is how can we help the supply chain become stronger? And diversification is part of that, because a diversified and flexible and stronger supply chain benefit both the oil and gas industry and the defense sector. So that's why we're here, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much to both of you. Debra, whenever you're ready, your 20 minutes will start now.
Great, thank you very much. The Defence and Security Accelerator is 2 years old. How many of you heard of us? Ah, fabulous, thank you very much. How many of you heard of our predecessor, the Centre for Defence Enterprise? No? Okay, that was around for about 10 years. So for 12 years, my organisation and our predecessor have been providing funding for technology transfer from other sectors into defence and security in TRL 2 to 7 area. Okay? And we do that through a number of different ways. Our mission statement is to find and fund exploitable innovation. We want to support the defence and security of the United Kingdom, and we do that by helping Her Majesty's Armed Forces, the security forces, the Home Office, the Department for Transport, and maybe a team that you might have heard of recently because it was on the BBC News yesterday, the Future Aviation Security Team. They're a crossover team that exists between the Department for Transport and the Home Office, a very, very interesting organisation. We obviously also want to improve UK prosperity because we're a government department. So in that find and fund function, I'm the find bit. I'm based here in Scotland, and anytime any of you want to come and talk to me about technology transfer from oil and gas to defence and security, or about some of the funding programmes maybe that we have, just drop me an email. My card's on the front desk. Get in touch with Luca. You've also got some contact details for us on the OGTC website as well. What do we do? Well, first of all, we do everything online. So it's through an online portal. You just register it, and then you can apply for our funding possibilities. We run themed competitions, and we run an open competition. The themed competitions, basically, a part of government comes to us with a pot of money and a challenge question. Can you solve this challenge question? And several of those that we ran last year, directly applicable to technologies within oil and gas, and people from oil and gas applied for those competitions. They're in the process of being assessed at the moment, and hopefully we're going to have some significant funding opportunities come to Scotland to oil and gas for technology transfer into defence. We also have the open competition. So any good idea that you have, something maybe that you're already doing that you believe could benefit defence or security, talk to me about it first, look at the funding opportunities through the open competition, and maybe you can get some funding to further develop those innovative ideas. On the far side, you'll see outreach. So I'm part of the outreach team. There are 12 of me around the country. Actually, there's not 12 of me. There's 11 boys and me. I know. What can I say? You can't copy me. But we've got the outreach team. They're based regionally. So if you happen to have come from a different part of the United Kingdom today, you will have an innovation partner that works in your area. If you work in collaboration with people in different parts of the UK or overseas, there will be an innovation partner that can help as well. And then we have an exploitation team. The exploitation team are there to help you. So if we get a fund decision from a proposal that you put into the Defence and Security Accelerator, what we do is we give you a member of our exploitation team who's available to help you exploit your innovative idea. Why might you want to work with us? Why might you want to think about applying for funding from the Defence and Security Accelerator for your innovative idea? Well, first of all, we have very benevolent terms and conditions. Now, it's very easy for anyone to say that, but let me back it up with some proof. First of all, 100% funding, so no match funding required. If you apply for 80k off us and you get a fund decision, you will get 80k, not a penny less. It's quite simple. Not a penny more either, but not a penny less. The 100% funding we're very, very firm about. And it's one of the things that we did when we set up the Defence and Security Accelerator. We wanted to make sure that all the barriers to innovation that there exist were smashed as far as we could. And you will be very much aware that one of the big barriers, particularly for sole traders, micro-organisations, small and medium enterprises, is a lack of funding and what that funding can be used for. So not only is it 100% funding, but you can spend the money on anything. So it can be on staff costs, it can be on equipment, it can be on materials, it can be on analytical techniques, it can be on renting premises, it can be on buying equipment, and so on and so forth, okay? So we've really tried to remove all of those barriers. The second thing, when we talk to people about what the barriers to innovation were in technology transfer from other sectors to defence and security, was, well, you're going to steal our intellectual property. So the intellectual property stays with you. We recognise that you come to us with intellectual property. It's yours, we don't want it. If you develop new intellectual property as the result of a fund decision, it's still yours, we still don't want it. What we do is we apply something which is called DEFCON 705, which you're probably not very familiar with. I can send anyone a link to it who wants to have a look at it. It is effectively a licensing type agreement, okay? I used to be an academic. My academic institution were content with it. I think Luca and his team have had a look at the documentation and they're content with it. But obviously it's up for individuals to be content with terms and conditions, including DEFCON 705. But I can send you some information if you're interested. We have a very rapid contracting process. If you get a fund decision off us, you will be on contract within 3 weeks. We can do it that quickly. I don't think any other government organisation can do that. And increasingly what we're finding is actually very often our suppliers are having problems responding in that time frame, particularly at the university level. It's something that we need to look at and it's something we need to do better because we're always trying to improve ourselves as well. We're only 2 years old. We're accelerating as well as accelerating innovation. The rapid contracting process, the reason we can do it so quickly, people very say, how come you can do it so quickly and no one else can? Why we can do it so quickly is because when you press submit on the portal, having done your application form, you sign up to the terms and conditions at that point. Your application effectively becomes your contract, okay? It's the basis of your contract. So it is very, very important that you are content with the T's and C's, including DEFCON 705. Now, you will have noticed that I've got a DSTL email address, okay? So the Defence and Security Accelerator co-locates with DSTL, the Defence Science and Technology Laboratories, primarily based down at Porton Down. But we have a cross-government focus. Please don't think that we're only Ministry of Defence. I've already told you about some of the different types of government that actually place funding contracts with us. So Department for Transport, Home Office, Security Services, MOD, Frontline Commands, so Army HQ places contracts with us as well. So we're not just Ministry of Defence. We have a pool of over 500 trained assessors. So when you apply to us for funding, we present you with a taxonomy and we ask you to identify yourselves against that taxonomy. All of our trained assessors have been identified with the same taxonomy. And so what the competition team will do after you've pressed the submit button is they will line you up with assessors who actually know what you're talking about. They understand the technologies that you're coming to us with. And they will give you an assessment based on that. At least 3 people will assess your application. It will be moderated. It will be discussed at a decision conference. All of these dates are published on our website. And then you'll receive a fund or no fund decision. If it's a fund decision, you're straight over to contracts. 3 weeks' time, start work. If it's a no fund decision, we'll give you some feedback. We're always open for ideas, and there is no such thing as a silly idea. The number of times people have said to me, I don't think you'll be interested in my idea, but, ... You know, if I had £1 in a year that I've been doing this job for every time somebody who said that, I would already be very, very rich. We want to be a simple and easy way to access defense and security. So even if you're not applying to DASA, but you'd like some contacts in the defense and security space, drop me an email. I might be able to help you. I can't guarantee it, but I might be able to find somebody who'll chat to you about what you're interested in. Just some key facts for you. So in the 2 years since we were born in December 2016, I'm very proud that we were born in Scotland. We were born at the Maritime Conference that was hosted by the University of Strathclyde in December 2016. Just under 1,500 applications assessed. They've come from 700 organisations, and about 40% of those organisations are new to DASA. So don't think that this is one of those funds that only the old boys get funded from. That's absolutely not true. You can see the breakdown of the types of organisations that apply to us. At the moment, sole traders are included in with micros, if you were wondering, and that's because we actually have relatively few sole traders that have applied to us so far. And this financial year, so far, we've funded 142 projects with a total of £26 million. This financial year in total, we have £46 million to spend. So we've got quite a lot of money still to spend this financial year. Some examples of some of the themed competitions that we've run this financial year. So the first thing, disposal of munitions on the battlefield. So disposal of chemical and biological munitions on the battlefield. Now, you might think that has nothing to do with your sector. Think about some of the operations you do. You work in extreme environments with dangerous substances. The battlefield is an extreme environment with dangerous substances. And this particular competition was targeted at oil and gas. So some of you may have come across it. It was widely advertised through OGIC and through OGTC very kindly. And we were very interested in attracting people in from the oil and gas industry so that we could have a look at some of the clever things you do in your extreme environment to see if they might be applicable in our extreme environment. Now, you might be saying to me, but hang on a minute, what I do at the moment is effectively commercial off the shelf, and you're talking about TRL 2 to 7. Yes, but when you apply it to a different sector, it drops down the TRL. There will be a phase 2 of that competition coming up in the next financial year. So if you're at all interested, keep your eyes open for it. And it's a joint competition with the Americans. So the possibility for technology transfer overseas exists as well. We've currently got a competition open jointly with the Australians that's looking at joining technologies. We're interested in adhesives, we're interested in different types of welding, we're interested in additive manufacturing right across the materials class. We're interested in composites. We're interested in tailoring adhesives for better end use for military purposes. We're interested in materials that are used at high temperature, 2,000 degrees Celsius. We're interested in materials that might be used for armour materials. So you might want to have a look at some of those challenges. We've got a sensors competition coming later this year. I don't know an awful lot about it at the moment, but I have been told it's likely to look at sensors that are used in extreme environments. You work in an extreme environment. We've got a space competition coming up. You know, think about some of the clever things that happen in oil and gas around small pieces of tech that have to be deployed. It's very similar to some of the problems we see with space. Cyber data competitions coming up and held in the past. You have to deal with data. You have to make sure your data is secure and is transmitted amongst different environments, different domains. We have exactly the same sort of problems. And we're very interested to know if we can learn from you. Logistics. Last year we ran a competition that was looking at trying to better organise the logistics on the aircraft carrier, Her Majesty's ship Queen Elizabeth. We've currently got another competition with the aircraft carrier crew, which is looking at tracking personnel. When you get on board the aircraft carrier at the moment, if you're a member of RN personnel, you pull a wooden peg out of one hole and you put a wooden peg in another hole. It hasn't changed since Nelson's time. Now, we instantly know there are better ways to do that, don't we? And we're really interested in how you track your personnel. How do you know exactly where your people are when they're offshore? Can that be applied to the aircraft carrier? Efficient working. You guys are great at efficient working. We're rubbish at it, quite frankly. We want to get better at efficient working. And so we're really interested in the processes that you have in place for efficient working. So these are all areas that we have recently run competitions in or will be running competitions in the near future where I believe oil and gas could transfer tech into defence and security. This is a little bit more about joint effort. So this is the joining competition. So as you can see, I mentioned it's about adhesives, welding, and other technologies, including things like additive manufacturing. We're interested in all the materials classes. We want to improve performance, durability, and maintainability. Think about some of the challenges you have around durability and maintainability offshore and subsea. Now, we don't have exactly the same challenges. Okay, bits of the Navy do, but we don't have exactly the same challenges. But you've got some technology that I believe could be applied in some of our extreme environments. At the moment, we're looking for low TRL ideas. So we're looking at things that are around TRL2, TRL3. And all we're looking for is an acceleration of one step as a minimum. We're not saying you've got to go from 2 to 7 in one bang. We're saying 2 to 3 is fine, that's success. We want to accelerate things. Closes the 5th of February. There will be future phases for this competition. I know there's definitely a phase 2 planned and probably a phase 3. Our open competition is split into 2 halves. We split it by technology readiness level. So first of all, the lower technology readiness levels, which we associate as being higher risk. So TRL2 to TRL4, we refer to as our emerging innovation stream. For defence proposals, we're thinking about projects that would be up to about 9 months, and they'd be up to about 90K as a maximum. For a security-focused proposal, that would be about 12 months and up to about 150K. Security have currently provided us with 5 focus areas, and they're absolutely focused on those 5 areas. They're around airport security, and they're around railway station and railway carriage security. So you can have a look at those online if you want to think that you might have something to add into there. At higher TRLs, we recognise that there's less risk. It's more likely to come to fruition. It's more likely to become a commercial off-the-shelf or COTS item. And you're going to need more money to do it in a longer time frame. So for defence proposals, 24 months, a maximum of about £250,000. Security proposals, it's a similar amount of money in a similar time frame as for the lower TRL, and again, focused currently on those 5 areas. Now, our funding limits are currently under review, and these funding limits are quite likely to change within the next couple of weeks. I was hoping I'd be able to give you some hot off the news press, but unfortunately, the information hasn't quite been released yet. Once you've put in an application, our assessors will use these 3 things to assess your proposal. The most important thing is desirability. We've just gone past Christmas. How many of you got kids? Right, so they all provided you with a Christmas list, okay? Defence and security have their own Christmas lists. And you know what it's like, number 1 bike, number 2 Lego, number 3 Meccano, etc., okay? So if it's number 1, they're very excited. If it's number 2, they're still probably very excited. If it's number 15, they're not very excited. I remember when I was 16, I had this desperate want of a Swiss Army penknife for my birthday. And I got a silver charm bracelet. It was very difficult. I still tease my father about it. I never admitted to my mother, I will say. The second assessment criteria, feasibility. So technical feasibility. Your proposal, the assessors will look at it and they'll say, is it technically feasible? So they'll all be subject matter experts. And they will look at what you've written down and try to understand what you've said that you're going to do and how it fits in with their knowledge and whether it's technically feasible. And then viability. So viability is all about you. It's about the team. It's about how much money you've asked for what you're going to do in the time frame. It's about whether you understand the problem, whether you've got the kit to do the piece of work that you're suggesting, or whether you understand you've got to maybe buy some kit. And finally, you can get in touch with me in lots of different ways. Business cards are over on the desk. There's lots of different ways you can get in touch with us. Everything's on gov.uk. It's not the easiest of websites to negotiate. If you have any problems finding out any information, please drop me an email and I'll send you the direct link. Please don't waste hours of your life using the search engine on gov.uk. It's bad enough that I waste hours of my life doing it. We have a Twitter account. We have a LinkedIn account. I'm on LinkedIn. Pretty much all I do on LinkedIn is reshare things, to be perfectly honest with you. Events like this, other things. If I spent my whole life on Twitter and LinkedIn, I'd do nothing else. I'd never come and actually talk to people. We also have an Instagram account. I haven't got that listed on here at the moment. It's relatively new, so we're just developing it. And that is me. Thank you very much for listening to me, and thank you very much for listening about the Defence and Security Accelerator.
Thank you very much, Debbie, for the presentation. We're now going to move into the Q&A section. And before you pose any questions, I'll ask you, we record the sessions, and it's important for us that your questions will be heard. So Lauren will be coming to you with the microphone. If you can please wait for the microphone before asking, that would be lovely. Thank you. So do we have questions over there?
Hello, I'm Stephen from the OGTC.
Hello.
I was just wondering, can you give us a couple of examples of any technologies that have transferred through your efforts from, say, oil and gas into defence?
Yes, sure. So there's a number of companies who are currently in discussion with us that I obviously can't talk about, but I can assure you that they are coming from oil and gas. There's a number of companies who applied for particularly the decommissioning of munitions on the battlefield with respect to chemical and biological, so applying technology from oil and gas to that. Probably a nice engineering example is do you know Vert Motors? So Vert Motors, who have designed a new type of compressor. They're based out of Edinburgh. Some of you probably know Ollie here. So Ollie received funding from us very early on. It allowed him to accelerate his ideas with regards to a new type of compressor, which is 3 to 4 times more efficient than typical compressors and much quieter. He's now getting funding from the European Space Agency. So he's been able to transfer from sort of what you might think of as traditional engineering into a defence space and then out into a space space. So.
Thanks very much for the interesting presentation. Steve Sherman from MMP.
Lovely to meet you.
You talked about the 3-week process being
Yes.
very efficient because of the contracting process that you engage with when you're in filling out the application. And you mentioned something about review boards or public review.
Yes.
How often are they held? And what's the front end piece? What's the duration to get that decision?
Excellent question. If Luke had given me another 5 minutes, I would have had time to talk about that during my talk. So thank you very much for asking that question. It wasn't planted, by the way. So we have to think slightly differently about themed and open competitions. With themed competitions, there's usually a very tight time frame, and all the dates will be published in what we call the competition document, which is available as a PDF on the website. But typically what will happen is the themed competition will be announced. It might have 4 to 6 weeks before it closes. Once it closes, what the competition team will do is line up the assessors. Very often they will come from the organisation that sponsored it rather than from our bigger pool of assessors, but they may be supplemented by that bigger pool. We typically give assessors a short period of time to do the assessment, 21 days maybe, something like that. At the end of that period of time, it'll go for moderation, again, a very short process, a decision conference. Typically, that's within 6 weeks of closure date, and then you'll find out straight away. If you get a no-fund decision, the feedback may take up to a month to 6 weeks to come through, and that's purely because obviously what we have to do is we have to make sure we're being fair to everybody that's receiving that feedback from that competition. It has to go through commercial to make sure there are no commercial considerations as well, of course. With the open competition, it's a bit easier to find the dates, so all you need to do is to go to the front page of the open competition on our website, and then at the bottom of it, there's dates around closure dates and decision conference dates, and when we'd get feedback back to you, and there's a series. So the next closure date, for example, for the open competition is the 28th of February. The one after that is the 2nd of May. The one after that is, I think, the 9th of June, maybe July, might be July. Haven't quite got the third one in my brain yet. We're going to run 5 or 6 this year in terms of the open competition. So we obviously have to close it to empty it to assess, but it's reopen almost instantaneously. So that's the sort of time frame we're talking about. So it's not massive amounts of time. We've tried to trim it down as much as possible.
Hi, I'm Malcolm from the OGTC. Great presentation.
Thank you.
The one thing that intrigued me was the ability to give away 100% funding, especially
Yes.
to commercial organisations.
Yes.
Obviously, we're bounded by state aid regulations that
Absolutely.
don't allow us to do that.
Yeah.
How do you get around that or get away with that?
Because we only go up to TRL 7. So we're not commercial off the shelf. So if it was getting to the stage where you're looking at competitive processes, for example, invitation to tender type processes, we're not at that level. We're just helping people accelerate. So we're effectively still in a research and development rather than a development to commercial off the shelf stage.
Okay, but even at those levels, we don't fund 100% because we're told we can't.
Yep.
So, interesting.
Hello, Jason Penn, Check 6.
Hello, Jason.
Hi.
I'm going to meet you in a couple of days, a couple of weeks' time, aren't I?
Ex-military aviator as well. My questions are about security clearance.
Yes.
So, say we come up with a good idea.
Yep.
My organisation is predominantly in the US.
Yes.
So, sharing of data, the Five Eyes, all that sort of stuff. How could we get around that in the innovation part of it?
Yeah, it can be difficult. It can be difficult with certain nationalities and certain countries as well, as you might imagine. So we don't restrict in terms of countries that can apply to us. We're currently funding about 30 projects overseas, something like that in total. It depends on the project and the TRL. Typically, for most projects, if they're at a low TRL, so a 2 or a 3, the end use is so far away, it doesn't matter. And obviously the IP sits with the supplier. At higher levels of TRL, with certain nationalities, then we have to be a bit more careful. But with those, it's almost dealt with on a one-to-one basis. So, for example, we might have an instance where somebody will come in to the accelerator with a really good idea, a really innovative idea, and there are people who've got an interest in it, but they don't want to use it for the end use that the supplier is suggesting. They can see something over here. So the supplier doesn't get to know about that. The supplier is developing for their end use. And then we potentially might use it over here. So if it's something that's in that sort of area, then it has to be on a case-by-case basis. One of the things we do say is that if you get a fund decision, we do ask for short CVs for people. We will do a basic security check, which makes perfect sense when you think about it. As far as I'm aware, I don't think we've ever had anyone who's then been rejected at that stage in 2 years, not to my knowledge.
Okay, you mentioned the IP, but who actually owns the data?
Any data that's generated from doing the research, it sits with the supplier.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for your talk.
Thank you.
I work for DNVGL, Mike Johnson. I work across both our Aberdeen oil and gas operations, and we have a testing facility at Spade out of the north of England.
Yes, I'm aware of that testing facility.
We do security related work.
Yeah.
Would the best point of contact be yourself initially, on any ideas we have?
Probably myself to start off with. I mean, where would you consider your headquarters to be? You would consider it to be in Scotland?
Our headquarters is in Norway, actually.
Oh, okay, right, okay. Just to be awkward.
Well, yes.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
In
I
the
think
UK,
if it was you that was
London,
contacting in, then come to me.
Yeah.
If it was one of your Norwegian colleagues, we do have an innovation partner who covers international companies. He's based out of London. And it may well be that both of us would talk at the same time.
Okay.
And hopefully say the same thing.
Be UK driven, probably.
Yes.
From possibly north of England, I don't know.
Yeah. I would say come to me in the first instance.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Debbie. James Johnston from Quadcam.
Hello.
Great talk. Could we go back to the list of all the different themes that you were running through in terms of there.
That one. This is just a few examples.
Are they ranked, or are they the ones that you have the most interest in developing?
So these are ones that I picked from the 27, I think, that we've run so far since we've been in existence, that I thought might particularly be of interest to oil and gas. So I could see a technology transfer.
Okay.
For some of the competitions we run, for me, it wasn't so obvious. So these are just a few examples of competitions we've either run in the past at a phase 1, so a low TRL level, that will probably have a phase 2, a higher level to come, or competitions that are coming in the future that I thought oil and gas might be particularly interested in.
Okay, great, thank you.
Sorry, me again.
That's okay.
Sorry to hog the mic. I see we're using the term accelerator.
Yes.
And I'm seeing funding.
Yes.
Is there an accelerator program that you run with, support and education, mentor support?
Not in that respect.
In the way the term accelerator has been.
No.
It's not an accelerator program.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're accelerating the technology. We do provide, if you receive a fund decision, as well as being linked into one of our exploitation team, You'll also be appointed a technical partner. If in a themed competition, that will come from the government organisation that sponsored the competition. With respect to the open competition, that's very often someone within DSTL. They're there to help you if you need them, basically. So it'll be somebody who's either a subject matter a subject matter expert in the area or has an interest in the area. But not in the terms of that. It is something we've looked at, and we have taken some of our inspiration from how commercial incubators and accelerators work. This might be something that is completely surprising to you when you think it's coming out of the MOD. We're trying to be very disruptive. We're not trying to be a typical civil service organisation. We are trying to be quite disruptive. We've got quite a disruptive team of people that work together and have come from all different backgrounds, so not necessarily just from within the civil service or just from within the MOD. But no, we don't really fund that sort of programme like you would see coming out of something like the elevator, for example. Yeah.
Hi, hello. Luis Ibarra, also from MP.
Yeah.
Quick question. If the company is applying for the funding, is also seeking funding from other sources, any constraint related to that?
We have to be relatively careful, obviously, when it's government money, because we can't be seen to be allowing double dipping to happen. And we do check with our colleagues within organisations like Innovate and KTN, Scottish Enterprise. I have good connections with all of those organisations within Scotland itself. What we would encourage you to do, though, is to say that you are applying for that level of funding, from other sources within your application, because obviously what it shows is it shows the leveraging possibilities. One of the other things we encourage you to do in your application is to talk about how you would continue accelerating your idea at the end of the project that you've proposed to us. So, if you've got a number of allied projects that are running that, you've already got funding from other organisations, you can say that that's effectively funding and leveraging off another application. So we would encourage you to include that in your application, and we do talk to other funding agencies. Oh, Luca's not allowed to ask a question. Are you?
It's more about on the criteria for assessment,
yes.
Right? So they're pretty simple and straightforward.
Yep.
What if the solution proposed or the proposal is partially working, and you know that you might need to add something else, maybe from some other technology or some other company? Do you do sort of a brokering and suggesting to join up with other organization? Because the applicant, especially if he's coming from another industry, may have a limited understanding of what is required, but the technology must still be valuable if joined up with something else.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, and that can be an issue, obviously, particularly when people are first starting to move from a different sector into defence and security. That can be a real issue. And what I would encourage you to do is, if you're in that position, is drop me a line, send me a short paragraph about what you're thinking about. I'll have a look at it, and I'll get back to you, and I'll say, do you mind if I send this to a couple of colleagues within DSTL? Do you mind if I send this to somebody who works within the Army, and to see what they think and can give you some feedback? So from that perspective, that helps from an end user's perspective. Our exploitation team are there to help with linking companies up together. We do run collaboration events. So the event that I mentioned that was on the BBC yesterday, which was from the FAST team, that was a demonstration day, effectively. So that was looking at some of the things that have been funded by the FAST team through the Defence and Accelerator. So everybody got together, basically, demonstration day, and that's obviously a possibility for you to show your technologies to people who are outside of where the areas you currently work in. Maybe people who are going to actually commission further work, people who are maybe going to buy the product at some stage in the future. We've also held supplier investment days. We held a very, very successful one fairly recently in London. And what we did was we brought together some of the people who've been funded by the Accelerator. They had the opportunity to pitch to investment folk to see if they were interested in coming forward and investing in that particular idea in the future. So, yes, we can help.
We have time for one more question. Are there more questions for Debbie? No, I don't think so. No more questions. All right. So we're going to close the session. Thanks again, Debbie, for all the presentation and the questions you've answered. Luca, would you like to have any closing remarks? I'll hand you the microphone here.
Yeah, no, just to like to add my personal thank you to Debra for the presentation, and also encourage you to explore a potential application of your technology or ideas outside the oil and gas industry. As I said in the introduction, this is about technology transfer, but it's about having a stronger, more flexible, more versatile supply chain in the region here that can take technology that have solved problems in the oil and gas sector, for example, monitoring, tracking people on board, to the aircraft carrier, and then learn something there that can be brought back to the oil and gas industry as well. So the technology, especially innovative technology, the emerging and disruptive technology are going to change all the sectors around the industry, and the more we can leverage the various challenges, the various learning, the better. So thank you very much. We're going to work more collaboratively in the future with the defense sector, but also with the other sector, with KTN. So we're looking at how can we more promote and amplify the opportunities that are there for the supply chain and for technology innovators in various sectors, because this is something that benefits us all. So thank you again, and hope you enjoy the